Welcome to the Flippin' Right Show. I am Nick Sifoni, your host. I'm glad you're here. And it's another day, and it's a good day because we're flipping houses. I got to apologize first off. It's been about a week since we had our last episode up. I was gone over last weekend in Virginia with Charles Dudley, my good friend. I was helping him with his boot camp seminar, really a workshop. It was a small group. We worked hands-on with everybody. We had a real good time. When I came back, my computer was fried, so I needed a new motherboard and processor and all that stuff. $300 later, we're back and going strong. So thanks for your patience. I've sent out an email or two from my laptop with the list, but I really couldn't put up any new episodes. In any case, we had a great time last weekend. The people that were at the event walked away with not only a buying and a selling website, but with the education and knowledge to build those websites themselves. So now they can build a bird dog website, they could build a finding lease option buyer website, they can build any kind of website. It was a really great seminar combining real estate and internet marketing. Also, everyone that was at the seminar walked away with a full working knowledge of how to do lease option deals. And in today's economy, when mortgages are kind of tough to get right now, and there's so many people just begging to sell their houses. Well, it's hard to get a much better time to actually be doing that type of deal. So they walked away with full knowledge of making it, well, not full knowledge, I mean, it's not something you can learn in 2 days, but they walked away with their websites up and knowing how to do lease option deals. And I'm sure by now, a week later or 5 days later, whatever it is, some of those folks already got deals under contract. I'll let you know, Charles is doing the whole thing over again in July, middle or end of July. And I'll send an email to the folks on the launch list and to our members, letting you know when that's coming up in case you want to join us. It was a great time. Today we're talking about how to talk to sellers and buyers when you're doing a wholesale deal. And this whole topic, this whole episode came from one of our faithful viewers. I just spit. One of our faithful viewers, her name is Lara. And I hope I'm saying it right. I don't think it's Laura. It's Lara. Disclaimer bell in case you try to sue me for saying your name wrong. In any case, here's what her email says. And I do encourage everybody, please send me emails. Help me decide what these shows should be about. I want to give you what you're looking for. Send it to flippinhelp, no G, flippinhelp@gmail.com. Here's her email. Nick, I love your site. It's exactly what I needed to fill in the blanks. Well, most of the blanks. I've listened to many courses on wholesaling, but there's a little info I was missing on them. I was hoping that you could help me fill in those blanks. Question number one that we're going to go over. What do you say to a seller? How do you explain what you're doing without the seller getting mad? I know that there's wholesalers out there that don't tell the sellers what they're doing, but I'd rather be upfront so they won't find out later. So how do you talk to the seller? First off, I got a little bit of BS for everybody out there right now. And those of you that have been watching for a while know exactly what I talk about when I say I'm going to lay some BS on you. It's a Bennett sign. Do not waste time with non-motivated sellers. Check it out. This is one I'm going to get up really close because it's really important, huh? Really important. Don't waste time with non-motivated sellers. In other words, if the seller won't do almost, not everything, but if the seller won't do almost whatever you ask him to do, you're probably working with the wrong seller. So don't spend a lot of your time trying to trying to buy a house or flip a house or assign a house from somebody who won't leave any excuse me, I spit that I burped. Who won't leave any spread in there. So don't work with unmotivated sellers. In any case, though, when we work with a seller, in most cases, it depends on the deal. In most cases, we tell the seller when we sign our contract. Now, again, this is a wholesale deal where all we're planning on doing, we're probably not going to buy the property and fix it up ourselves. We might if the price is right, but we're probably just going to get it under a contract and assign that contract to somebody else. In most of those cases, what we tell the seller is, Mr. Seller, we're going to get your house under contract. We fully intend to buy your property, but we need to have a good inspection first and make sure that there's not any surprises that we're not expecting. Plus, Mr. Seller, we're going to bring in a money person who's going to fund the property. That's the person that we're going to work with. It's kind of like a money partner. And the way I look at it is if they bring the money in and buy it for me, it somewhat is a partner. Well, I almost hit the disclaimer rock. But there's a disclaimer bell. I don't feel it's a lie because I am bringing in a money partner to buy the property from them. And I do tell them up front, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, if there's more repairs than we estimated once we get a really good look at it, or if for some reason our money people can't come up with the funds to close this, we're not going to be able to do it. But you're going to know within a few weeks what's going to pan out. Now, there's two ways to do this. One is that way. And you're also right, Laura. A lot of investors just say, oh, I love your house and I'm going to buy it. Now, if you have an extensive enough buyer's list, you can do that. If the price is right and you know your buyer's list and you know there's people that are going to buy it, you can do that. But if you're a little iffy about it, do what I just said. Or if you're really cautious about it, it really bugs you to maybe think you're leading them out a little bit, sign an option with that seller and tell the seller, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I'd like an option to buy your property. In other words, here's how much we're going to pay you if we buy it. We're going to close within 30 days if we buy it. But there's a good chance that we won't buy it. And you can just tell them exactly what you're doing. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I'm going to get an option to buy your property. In other words, you're going to agree to sell it to me at a certain price if I want to buy it. And then I'm going to go out and try to find somebody else to buy it from me. Now, if they won't go for that, remember the BS for today. If they won't go for that, you're not dealing with the right kind of seller. Run away. But most of them, if they want to sell the house, they will go for that. And then you sign an option contract with them, and you can even tell them, and I do this all the time, Mr. Seller, you can continue to try to sell your house on your own while I'm looking for my buyer. So if you find someone to buy the house from you first, go ahead and sell it. Don't worry about me. My option is null and void. Chances are, though, you know what? I'm the professional. I'm probably going to find somebody a lot quicker than they are to buy that house. Now, we're assuming it's a kind of a junker house. So, now, if it's a pretty house and you're looking to find somebody to come in retail and buy it and move in and live there, I would always suggest the option route, where you get an option on the property and it lets you find your buyer. So, really, the bottom line, be upfront, have a motivated seller, and have those two options. Either, get it under contract to assign, or just get an option on it if it really bugs you. But even if you get a contract on it, you can tell them, Mr. Seller, I am almost sure I'm going to buy this house. I just got to make sure that it's in the condition we like and that my money partner agrees. Because just tell them, if this guy's going to fund the whole deal, he's got to agree, which is the total truth. And then that'll let you work on it. Part 2 of the question, what are you saying to the buyer? What would stop them from going around you to the seller? We had this happen last week. And how exactly do they pay you, up front or double close? So what are you saying to the buyer? What would stop them from going around you to the seller? First off, I have a contract with the seller. In the contract, I got to make sure your contract says, especially if you're doing the option type of thing where they have the right to sell it, you got to make sure that contract says somewhere in there that they are absolutely not able to sell the property to anyone that came through you. So you make sure, you don't want them, bringing somebody. For instance, last week we had a seller who came to us through a realtor. So the realtor a buyer who came to us through a realtor. The realtor was going to get paid. We were going to get paid. And the seller went right to the buyer's house and tried to get rid of us and tried to get rid of the realtor. And luckily, it's going to happen sometimes. It won't happen if you're dealing with an investor. I won't say won't. Disclaimer bell again. It could happen, but chances are if you're dealing with an investor, it's not going to happen. Because if you're a bird dog, take this to heart. If you found a good property for that investor, he's not going to cut you out over $4,000 or $5,000. Because if you're able to find him properties, he'd rather you find him another property and another property and another property. But when you're dealing with a retail person who's going to move in, that's when they might go around. If you get wind of that, and again, you can't always avoid it, but if you get wind of it, what you would tell the seller, and here's what I told my guy. I was at the boot camp last week teaching when this was happening, and one of my ground partners, one of my project managers called me and told me what happened. He found out because the seller called him and said, and told him, that buyer you're working with came here and wanted me to scratch you guys out of the deal. But I told him absolutely not. You've worked too hard on this. Now, luckily we had a good buyer. Had the buyer not, the seller, had the seller not been willing to come right to us like he did, the second plan is you call the seller and you tell the seller, Mr. Seller, we have a contract here. We're going to file that contract with the county, which will make it require our signature to sell that house. Then you file an affidavit, memorandum of sale, or a memorandum of option with the county, and a good wholesale course to teach you how to do all that, which locks it up. Now, even if you don't file it, you can kind of tell the seller that you're thinking about it or you will file it, just to make him a little nervous and make him not want to cut you out of the deal. And how exactly do they pay you? Typically, I'm sure you've heard, the golden rule. He who has the cash makes the rule. It really depends on your buyer. If I'm dealing with, this is how I get paid as the middleman when I'm assigning a deal. If I'm dealing with an investor, and that investor is using private money, or he's got a line of credit, or he's got cash, or if he's using anything besides a traditional mortgage, in most cases we're just going to do a simple assignment. And what's going to happen is, what I try to get, and this happens about a third of the time, is I try to get, when I assign that contract, I get the contract to buy it from my seller, then I fill out a contract that's called an assignment of contract agreement. I fill out that agreement. My buyer pays me the $3,000 or $5,000. I mean, the most I ever got with a straight assignment was $19,000, and we got it up front. He paid us that up front. Then he went on his own and closed with the buyer. So it happens. So I would rather have him here. You sign this assignment contract. It lets you step into it lets you step into our buying spot in our agreement with the seller. Give me my $5,000 up front, then you just go buy it from the seller. Now, that doesn't always work. It works if the guy's got his own cash. If he's borrowing the money, in a lot of cases, and it's not from a traditional lender, he's going to want to roll it in to the closing. So you can put it into the closing, because again, if he's dealing with cash or a home equity loan or a line of credit or a private lender, they don't care about seasoning. They don't care about any of that. So you can just put right in the contract $5,000 assignment fee payable to me, and then you get paid at the closing. I would suggest you get some earnest money, though, to lock it in and make sure that you get paid. We at least try to. If it's somebody we've dealt with more than once, I don't care if they give us earnest money, because if they tell me they're going to close, they're going to close. So now the other situation that can happen is when their money's coming from a traditional lender. In that case, it makes it tougher, because the traditional lender is going to want seasoning, and the traditional lender is going to want not going to want to pay an assignment fee. It depends on the lender. But in that case, I get my money from the seller, and we have the seller sign a contract, and they actually sign a form that has them pay me to release them from their contract with me, that allows them to sell it to the next guy. And the contract, it's a release of contract agreement. So basically, it goes right on the HUD, and they get paid. I get paid at closing. It says that they're paying me my $5,000 or whatever to release them from selling to me, to let them sell to the next guy, and that works. If you don't get it, send me an email, flipandhelp@gmail.com. I'll explain it a little bit better. I don't have the time to go into it really here. The other thing what time that happens is if you're selling to a retail buyer. If you're selling to somebody who's getting a traditional mortgage, you're going to have to close it that way too. Now, if it's a large sum, or for some reason you feel either the seller's not going to go along with the profit you're making, or the buyer, then you're going to want to do a double closing. You're going to want to have two closings in one day, where you close and buy it from the seller, and then 15 minutes later you sell it to the end buyer. But you can only do that if he's using private money or something. Traditional money, traditional mortgage, it's probably not going to work. I try to avoid the double closings, although we do them. Any good wholesale course will teach you how to do a double closing. It's really not complicated. If you've got the cash to pay for it first, it's real easy, but in most cases, you basically just let the title company know what's going on. A lot of the mainstream title companies won't do it, but ask around enough, you'll find a title company that'll do it. And you could even have your buyer come in first and sign all the paperwork, and then use that money and pay for it, and then use that money to buy it from the seller. So I hope that helps. Again, a lot of it depends on the buyer. Typically, however the buyer wants to do it, since he's the guy bringing the cash, in most cases, we'll work with him and get it done. Quick couple things in news here. Flippin' Midnight, it's changed. It's not canceled, but we've had requests from you folks, from viewers, Flippin' Midnight on a Friday night. First off, a lot of people are out partying on a Friday night. Secondly, Friday night at midnight is just kind of too late, a lot of people. So I've got requests. Can you please do Flippin' Midnight at Flippin' Noon or something else? So we're going to change it to Flippin' Live. It's going to be the Flippin' Live. We're going to do it once a month, maybe twice. I'll send out an email to the list. So if you're not on our pre-launch list or a free member, get down there, fill in your name, or up there, fill in your name, wherever it is, and you'll know when Flippin' Live is. But basically, it's going to be, I'm going to switch it around. So sometimes it's in the afternoon, sometimes it's 6, 7 o'clock at night. That way, I can get it in prime time when you guys want it, and I can answer your questions. It gives you a chance, at least an hour, to talk to me, ask me any questions you have about real estate, and have me answer them. I think I've went over my time period. YouTube won't go anything more than 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to make this a shorty for YouTube, but it's a full thing, and it's a good thing you're here at www.rei-tv.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Nick. Have a great day. Get out there and do some flipping right.